Uh, so many of them were absent for yesterday's class. That's okay. Did you see the recordings? Did you people watch the recordings and see to the concept which we had covered? Okay. So let's move with the next topic, and the next topic is known as inheritance. Okay. So what do you mean by this inheritance? So generally you might have heard this. So you have inherited certain characteristics from your father or mother or grandparents sometimes. So biologically you have heard this, right? So basically in C++ also inheritance means the same thing. That is, there will be a one class which will be known as a parent class. Okay. And parent class. And what we do is there will be another class which will be known as the child class. So what is happening over here? The child is inheriting a certain characteristics from the parent class, and this concept is known as inheritance. So the parent or the child, what we use is the general terms. Technically what we use is one will be your base class and another one will be your derived class. Okay, so understand this much. So basically in inheritance, what is happening? We are deriving certain characteristics from the parent class to the child class. And that class wherein we are deriving is known as the derived class, and the parent class will be known as the base class. This much is clear? Oh.
Yes, ma'am.
So what we shall see what is class and these things once again. So basically I told you we'll be having a class, and so what will be there inside the class? We'll be having a term known as objects. Okay. So I'll be having a class, and inside the class I'll be having objects. Understood this much? So to give an example, if I say fruits. So what are the example of fruits? Maybe I'll be having apple, orange, or mango. So this much will be I'll be having. So the object will be a subset of the class. Understood? So these objects, that is apple, orange, and mango, are present in class fruit is what I mean. That's it. So just remember this much. I'll be having some object, and what is happening over here? The objects are the part of the class. That is, object is a subset of a class. Okay. So next we'll be having certain things like attributes and methods. So by default, remember one thing. When you are creating a class, creating an object is a necessary thing. So when you create a class, it is mandatory that you create a objects. Okay. So that is how you work on this. So if you remember, we had learned something known as function calling. When it comes to attributes and methods, so for example, if I have an example of car, so car is my class. Okay. So what happens here is, what will be my attributes? So attributes will be something like the color of the car, Oh, what can I say? And maybe the weight of the car. So these are known as the attributes. Okay. So when it comes to methods, how do you drive car? So maybe driving and also applying brakes or acceleration. So these will be the methods. Okay. So these will be the methods. Methods calling is something similar to that of your function calling. So when you call a method, it is something similar wherein you called your function. You'll be having a declared variable and later you will be having the main class wherein you'll call the method. Like how you were calling the function, in the same way you'll call the method also. But one thing here is, before calling a method, you should have class and objects. Okay, is this clear? So how it will be going on? So let us see the examples over now. So just remember this thing. So first thing, classes and objects go hand in hand. And once you create a class, creating an object is a mandatory thing. Then you'll be having some attributes, some variables or some parameters to pass, and you'll be having methods. Calling function and calling method is a similar way. Okay. And also, before calling the method or before taking the variables or the attributes, the mandatory thing is you should create a class and you should create an object. When you create a class, it's mandatory that you create an object. Okay. So for next, we were talking about what inheritance. So we were telling that the child class will be taking up some properties from the parent class. So let's see how it works. So I told you the first one is known as base class, right? So when you are declaring something, so if you want to inherit the characteristics from parent class to the child class, what is the first thing you are supposed to do? You should create a parent class first. So let's see how a parent class is created. So let me tell it as class and let me take an example of vehicle. Okay. So once you create it, I was mentioning yesterday, make it a habit that once you create a class, keep in your mind, you must create an object. Okay, that's the first thing. And also do declare the access specifiers. Okay, so what are access specifiers? Your public, private, those stuff. So here I'll be taking it as public. Okay, so public. So next, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to create a variable within the class. So I'll take it as string and I'll take it as the brand. And what will be my brand? Ford will be my brand. That is, I'm declaring a brand. So it is of type string. And what am I taking within it? I'm taking it as Ford. I think this much is clear. You create a class, the class name is vehicle, and you give an access that is public using the access specifier, and you're creating a variable that is brand. The brand name is Ford over here, and it is a string type. Okay. So next what I do is I want the output, right? So what I'll be doing, I'll be creating another variable, or it is a constructor, and I'll be giving cout. Let a be my output, and what do I want? I want it in a new line. make sure of brackets first. You have closed this and you want to close the next one. That is vehicle. I think it was here somewhere. So is this much clear? Wherein you are creating a base class of vehicle and declaring a certain variables under it. So our parent class is ready. So next, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to create a derived class. That is a child class. And this will be my or parent class. Okay. So now I have to create a derived class. So what is my main class? My main class is car. So I'll be okay. So I'll be taking, so my main class is vehicle and I'll be taking my derived class as car. So vehicle is a part of the car. So how I was taking some apple and fruits over here. So in the same way, I'll be taking car has the derived class and of the base class vehicle. Okay. Now what am I supposed to do? I want to inherit the characteristics of base class, that is parent class, to the derived class. How do I do that? I declare like this. So public vehicle. Okay. Again, once this is declared, what I do is now I have to give an access specifier here also, as it is a class again, and I'll be again giving the model. So I'm giving the model, right? So I'll be giving the model that is in the form of string, and the model would be something like 2015 or 16 model, something like that. And I'll be closing this. Now I'm taking two classes over here. The first one is the base class and the second one is the derived class. First, I'm declaring what is this class, that is vehicle, and I'm giving what all is required inside the class. Later, I'm taking another derived class or a child class which is known as car, and I'm inheriting all the values of vehicle to this class, and I'm giving the model name, model string, that is 2016 or whatever it can be. And this is the declaration of class what I do. That is the main declaration of the class. And again, what I should do next? So I should go with int main. And so I told you, once I'm creating a object, what am I supposed to create? Once I'm creating a class, what am I supposed to create? By default, I need an object, right? So I need to create a object over here. So I take the car and my object will be my car. Then within my car, I'll be having honk. Later, I'll be getting some C out. What do I want? I want to declare the brand name. So how do I do that? By using the object brand, and I want both the things. I want the model and also I want the brand. So what I do is I just give a blank space. And so what is this called? While I'm adding things, plus. What is plus? What is the term used? Concatenation, if you remember. So concatenation is nothing but adding. So I have given the model name and later the return 0. I have written 0 over here. No. Is this much clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts in this?
No, ma'am.
Okay, you understood how to create a class and how to put an object within it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So haven't I declared int main? Oh, int main is already here. I don't want this. And what should I include over here? Let's just include IO stream. What all do I need?
String.
Exactly. And one more thing what I need is string. So as I'm using string, I want the string part and I want the IO stream and using namespace std. Okay, so this much is enough, I guess. Okay, let's move wide here. No, that must go. So I'm getting the output of this and I'm getting 4th 2016. Clear? Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
So you may ask me another question. Why do we need all these? So why this inheritance is used? So firstly, the main feature why we use all these stuffs is reusability of code. Okay. So reusability of code is the main reason why we use this inheritance, and it will be easy for us to derive the, so if in case imagine I have only one parent class and I have more than two child class, for example child 1, child 2, child 3, I'm having something like that. So then what happens, I need not to type the specification what I want here in each and everything. So I can derive the properties or the properties from the parent class directly to the child class. So that is the major advantage of this inheritance. Okay, I'll be showing you the other hierarchies also. First take down this quickly. Just let me know once you're done. Done. Shall we move to the next topic?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let me comment on this. I don't want this now. Okay. So the next topic what I'm having is, so here what we saw, we were having just a parent class and a child class, and we were inheriting it from parent to child. So what do you think? Is it possible to have different hierarchy? So now it is 2, 1, and from 1 we are deriving it to 2. So is it possible to derive things from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 and 4 to 5, so on? So it is possible, and that condition is known as multi-level inheritance. So in this, basically what happens is, it's something like, so I gave you an example of parent and child. You will be having your grandparent, so grandparent to your parent and parent to child. So here it was only parent and child, but here what is happening? I'm having grandparent from grandparent to parent and parent to child. So this is known as multi-level inheritance, wherein we do not have single line of inheritance. We are inheriting multiple number of times from different hierarchy. Okay, so this is known as multi-level inheritance. Understood? So let me give you an example for better understanding. So let me take an example. So what is the first thing called? It is known as base class or the parent class. Okay. So in base class, let me take it as my class itself. So it's my class. So once after my class, what is needed? Access specifiers, public. So these and all should be like flow for you. It should then be a second thought for you. So it should be like, okay, I'm creating class. So right after that, I should need object next. After that, I should give the access specifiers. So it should be a flow to you wherein it becomes easy for you to write the coding part. Okay. So next I'll be taking as void, and I'll take my function, which is a constructor, and I'll so let me tell, this is some content of parent class. So I'm done with my base class or the parent class. Parent class is done. So I'm giving it as a name, my class. I'm giving an access specifier. I'm calling up a function wherein I want to print the content. So what is the content over here? It is content of parent class. So I close this. I'm done with this. And later now what I need a derived class. So in derived class, what happens? I'll be having something called class my child. Let me consider this as a child class, and from where should I derive? So it is public. What is the name of my first class? That is the base class. That is my class. So I'm deriving the properties of my class to my child. So this is derived class level 1. Let me tell it as level 1. Okay. I'm not giving any output. Let me give it later. Or let me give it as level 1. So next, what did I tell? It is a multi-level inheritance. So if it should be a multi-level inheritance, what should I have? I should have another derived class of level right? So once, if this is a parent and this is a kid child, what will be the next? So you'll be having grandchild. So let me take it as class my grandchild. So from where am I inheriting? For grandchild, I'm getting it from my child. So public my child. So even this is done. Understood till here? So I'm having a parent class. So in parent class, I'm giving certain properties. I'm not passing anything right now. Just understand the skeleton. So I'm having my class and some content inside my class. Later I'm deriving the properties of my class to the my child. This is level 1 of inheritance. And later what am I doing? In level 2, I'm inheriting from this. So what is this? This is my child to my grandchild. So from here to here, which is known as multi-level inheritance. Okay. So once I'm done with this, what am I supposed to do? So again, I want to go with the main program. Integrate. So what am I supposed to do here? First thing, when I have created a class, what do I want? I want an object. So my grandchild. So I want to create an object. Let my object be my object itself. Now I have created a function over here, right? Now what should be done? Calling of the function should be done. So how would you do that? Using my object, you will call the function. My object dot my function, and the return value is 0. Understood this much? So without creating an object, you cannot call a function. Okay, so some declaration. What have I taken here? My function, my function. Yes. Is there any spelling mistake what I did? Okay, I haven't closed it. Can you see any spelling mistakes over here? Just my grandchild, my object. I have those things. My class.
N is missing, ma'am.
Where?
Void my function. There above.
I didn't get where.
I'm like, you should not type N, ma'am, for function. Like in base class, see the spelling, ma'am.
Okay. So the content of the parent class. Done. So this will be called. So this I'm having in my base function. But where am I calling it? In the my grandchild, I'm creating an object and there I'm calling it the function. But basically where the function is called, it is called in the base class. But I'm inheriting it to level 1, that is my child, and later I'm inheriting it to level 2, that is my grandchild, and I'm trying to run the function. So this is called multi-level inheritance. Understood? So did you get a fair idea how you have to create a class, how you have to create a object and how to run a function? So in the same way wherein you're running my function, in the same way you call the methods also. So function calling and method calling is similar. Okay. So in the same way you'll be calling the methods also. So is this clear for you people? At least you got to know how to create a class object and how to call a function and a method.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, make a note of this quickly. If you want me to scroll down, please let me know.
Scroll down, ma'am.
Done?
Done, ma'am.
Okay. So this is the difference between your normal inheritance and multi-level inheritance. So next you're having another topic called as multiple inheritance. So what do you mean by multiple? Multi-level is many level. So what do you mean by multiple? More than one? So multiple means more than one. Single means one. Multiple means more than one. So basically what will happen here is you'll be having more than one base class. Okay. And you'll be having a derived class. The properties will be derived from both the base classes. Okay, so basically in multiple inheritance, you'll be having more than one base class. You'll be having more than one base class and you'll be having a derived class. This derived class will be taking the properties or the variables from both the base classes. Okay. So this is known as multiple inheritance. So single level you'll be giving from parent. So you'll be giving from parent to child. Multi-level grandparent to parent to child. So in multiple what happens? You'll be having like it is something like you're inheriting the properties from both your mother and father. So let me take the base classes father and mother and So you'll be having some characteristics of your mother as well as your father. The child will be getting the characteristics from both father as well as mother. So this is known as multiple inheritance. Understood? So let us go with an example and see how it works. So firstly, what do you need? So keep in mind, I need a base class. So let me take it as base class 1. Okay. So I'll create a class which is known as my class. So once after I create the class, what I need to give? I need to give the access specifier, and access specifier is public over here. Okay. So next I'll call a function. So what does void mean here? I cannot return the value. Okay. So I'll call the function. So what do I tell? See out. Content of base class 1. Because this is my base class 1. So I'll be taking this content of base class 1. So I'm done with my first base class. Okay. So here I told I have more than one base class. So what do I need to do now? I need to create another base class. Let me call it as base class 2. Okay. So again, I should create a class and I'll be calling it as my other class. Okay. So again, keep in mind you need an access specifier and we'll call another function. So let me call it as my other function. Okay. Now I need to print it. So let my cout be content of base class 2. Done. I'll close it. So I have two base classes ready. Where first one is my base class and I'm calling up a function over there, and the second one is my other class and I'm calling up a function over there. So next what do I need? I need a derived class. So I need int main. Sorry, I need a derived class, right? So what is my derived class here? Again, I need to declare another class. Let me take my derived class as my child class. Okay. So now, firstly, what do I want? I want to inherit the properties from both base class 1 and base class 2. So how do I declare that? So what did I do over here? Firstly, let's see that. So I was declaring the first class, right? So what do I do here? What is my first class? Public. What is the name of my first class? It is my class. And later, I want to derive it from the base class 2 also. So I'll put up a comma and I'll write it as public. What is the name of my another base class? It's my another base class. Is this much clear? So firstly, I have base class 1 and I have base class 2, wherein I'm calling up the function. So I want to inherit from both the base classes. So what am I doing? I'm calling my child class. So that is my child class, and I'm taking it from both the first base class is my base class, my class, and the second one is my another class. So I'm ready with the three classes, that is base class 1, base class 2 and the derived class. And in derived class, I have derived the properties from both my base classes. So next I move on with a function wherein I have int main, and here what should I do? What am I supposed to create? What do I need when I have class? What do I need? What do I need if I have the class in order for execution? I need an object. So my child class, I'll be creating one object known as my object. Now I'll be calling the functions. Okay. So how do I call functions? My object. So what is my first function? It is my function. Okay. Again, I want to call the second function also. So what have I declared over here? My object, my other function. So next, I want to return the value that is 0. My return type will be 0. Is this much clear? Any doubts in this?
No, ma'am.
I have a base class 1, I have a base class 2, and I'm deriving both the things. From base class 1 and base class 2, I'm deriving the things to my child class, and I'm calling up both the functions. Okay, take down this function quickly. I'll just see what should be done. Clear with the concept, people? If you have any doubt with respect to concepts, you can ask me.
Scroll down, ma'am.
Done?
Done, ma'am.
Okay. So any doubts still here in the concepts? You
No,
want me
ma'am.
you want me to repeat anything or something like that, or you didn't understand anything? No?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So let's move with the next one. Yes. the next topic is polymorphism. So what do you mean by this polymorphism? So generally, polymorphism means many forms. Okay, polymorphism means many forms. So more than one form of a certain thing is known as, in general basic English terms is what I'm telling, is known as polymorphism. Okay, so when does this polymorphism occur? So consider an example. I have many classes. Okay, I'm having more than two classes and that are related to each other by inheritance. So like how my grandparent was connected to my parent and the parent was connected to child. In the same way, when I have many classes and they are related to each other by inheritance, then this term polymorphism will come into picture. Okay, so let us take an example. Let me tell you like this. So for example, I was having base classes, right? So here my base class will be something called animal. Okay, I have a base class that is known as animal. And later what happens is I'll be calling a method. I'll be calling a method called the sound of the animal. Okay. So first I'm having a base class which is animal and I'll be calling a method. So here this is the method. So I'll be calling the method like how you're calling the function. In the same way, you can call a method also. If you remember, I did this in the previous yesterday's 11 o'clock session class, how to call a method. So I'm having certain sound of the animal, which is wherein I'm calling the method. And let me take my derived classes are different animals. So for example, it may be dog, cat, elephant, etc. Okay. So this is how they will be related. So what is happening? So basically what is happening here is the animals are different. So they are different derived classes. But the sound of the animals are also different. I'm basically taking this derived class, that is the object, from the base class, that is animal. So they are interrelated because all these dog, cat or elephants are the different form of animals. And I'm calling a method wherein I want the sound of all these animals. Okay, so I'm having the different forms of the same class that is known as polymorphism, and these are interrelated using class. Understood this much? The single class animal is having many forms, that is, it may be in the form of dog, cat, elephant, or deer, something like that. So, animal is having different forms, that is, different type of animals, and they are interrelated by inheritance. So I'll be relating all these stuff through inheritance, and this is known as polymorphism. Understood? So let me give an example, you'll get to know better. So I have a base class. So what is the main class I'm calling here? It is animal, right? So in animal, I give access specifier public and I'll call a function. What was the function that I'm calling? Animal sound. So the animal Okay. So this much is clear, wherein I'm creating a base class and I'm closing the base class. I'm done with the base class. So next what is happening? I want a derived class. So in derived class, let me take class. What is the class name? So what was the thing I gave over here? Dog. From where am I accessing this? So I'm getting it from the base class, that is public animal. Is this much clear? So I'm deriving this class dog from the base class animal. Okay. So next what am I trying to do here? I'm trying, in the previous sections, I wasn't calling anything inside the derived classes. So if you take an example of the first class, what we did here. So this brackets were left, the body of the code was left empty. I wasn't typing anything. So here what I do is, I try to put in some more variables within the derived class, that is dog. Firstly, I'm taking all the things from animal also to dog, and later I'm trying to put out some variables inside the class dog also. So it will be public next void animal sound. Okay, and see out. So what's the animal over here? Dog. The dog makes sound. And I'll close this. Understood this much? So I'm taking another class dog, wherein I'm trying to inherit the properties of animal to dog. So I'm giving it as public animal. Again, I'm trying to put up some variables inside this class dog, that is animal sound. Okay. And later what I'll do, I'll take another derived class. Okay, let me copy paste this. So let me change the animal now. Animal is something like cat. And again I'm inheriting from animal itself, and I'm giving the animal sound where the cat makes some sound. Okay. Is this much clear? I'm having two derived classes, that is dog and cat, wherein I'm trying to inherit the properties from the main class, that is animal, and trying to print the sound of the animal. Okay. So next, what do I need next? I want the main program. So I'll be having int main. So once I have the classes, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to create the object, right? So I'll be taking it as, in the first base class, what was my class name? My class name was animal, correct? So in my base class, my class name was animal, and for that I'll be creating an object, my animal, and in next case my class name was dog, and for that I'll be having my dog, and in next case it was cat, and I'll be having my cat. This much is clear. So next what am I supposed to do? So I'm supposed to call them, right? So in order to get the output, I'm supposed to call those functions. How do I do that? Using the objects. My animal dot. So what is the thing I need here? The animal sound, right? So animal. In the same way, what is my next? What is my next object? It is my dog. But what is the thing I should call over here? Again, it is the animal sound itself. So next what am I having? I'm having cat. So here it is big D. So next what am I having? I'm having cat. And later what am I supposed to do? Return 0. So what am I trying to do here? Firstly, so in all the three cases, what do I need? I need the animal sound, right? The animal sound is the common thing between all the three classes, that is either it is a base class or a derived class 1 or derived class 2. Okay, let me take as derived class 1 and derived class 2. So in all the three conditions, what am I trying to derive? I'm trying to derive the sound of the animals. So here what is happening? Basically many forms. So there are many forms of the sound which I'm getting, but the class is same. The class remains the same. The base class will be the animals, but the sound will be different, and these are connected to each other by inheritance. Okay, so this property is known as polymorphism. Understood? Or you have any doubts? Did you people get this?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you sure?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So again, coming to polymorphism, what is the use of polymorphism is reusability of code. It's again. Okay. And also you can reuse the attributes of existing class. Like we did here with animal sound. So that attribute we are reusing without creating a new class. Understood this much? Can you take it down quickly?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Scroll down, ma'am.
Yes. Just go through things from the beginning so that you'll get to know. Until like you study, everything what I do will be over your head. Done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when I was doing overloading, so do you people remember that by any chance I was doing something called function overloading? And I told you there will be two kinds of overloading function overloading. One is the operator overloading. So in overloading, I'll be having two types. The first one we did that was function overloading, and the second one was operator overloading. So we saw to the function overloading that day, and we should see the operator overloading. The reason why I didn't like tell you about the operator overloading was we needed the concept of classes and objects over here. So I didn't go up with that topic now. So let's see what is operator overloading. So basically in overloading, what am I doing? So what were we doing in function overloading? Hmm? So we were having in yesterday's class we did know we saw to the three rules. So what were the three rules? Either we were having different same type but different numbers, or different type, or either we were having different sequence of numbers, so that there will be no ambiguity to the compiler to run the program, right? So basically what we are doing, using the same name for more number of functions. So the same name is overloaded by different things. So I'm giving all the three assignments to a single person. I'm overloading stuffs to a single person. In the same way, like what we were doing in function overloading, there is a concept known as operator overloading. So firstly, what are all the operators you have? What are operators? What are the operators you have in your C++? We did in our first class. So can I tell we have plus operator, minus, greater than, less than. So these are the operators what we have in our C++. And basically what are we going to do? Overload or perform one or more operation on this operators, which is known as overloading of the operator or operator overloading. Understood? And this operator overloading will work on objects and structures. Okay, understood this much? So basically, operator overloading is something similar to your function overloading. On the basic operator, that is plus, minus, or greater than what we have, we will be performing the functions, and this operator overloading will hold good for user defined types like objects and structures. So first understand this much. Okay, did you get this much? Understood this much?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
If you're not getting, please tell me. You're getting it right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's see the syntax for C++ overloading. Okay. So what is the syntax? So I told you we need the objects. So when objects is there, by default, what do we need? We need class. So we have a class. I have a class. Once I give the class, what should I give? I should give the name of the class. That is class name. And I'll be having a access specifier, that is public. And later, so here is the thing where you need to concentrate. So this is the main syntax. You should give the return type and the operator symbol. So basically in operator, what are you having? You are having symbols, right? So you should give the symbol, and within that you are supposed to pass your arguments. And here comes the body, and you close it. That's it. It is very simple. So when they are related with objects and structures, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to create a class and give a class name, and you'll be having an access specifier. You'll see what is the return type, because you need to return a value, and on or what operator you're loading the function. So is it plus, minus, or whatever it may be, and the required arguments what you need to pass, and the body of the code. These are the things you need to take care of in object overloading. Understood this time? Understood? Okay. So in operator overloading, we are having two types. So I'll teach you only the basic, okay? So the first one is unary and the second one is binary. So as the name suggests, you people will get to know this. Unary means it is 1. Binary means it is 2. You have even more than this what can be done, but right now it is more than sufficient if you learn only these two stuffs. Okay, so in unary what happens, you'll be performing the overloading on a single operator. You'll be having only a one operator, and you'll be performing the overloading on one operator only. So in binary, what happens? You'll be having more than one, that is two operators, and you'll be performing operator overloading on two operators. So either here it may be plus or minus, and here it may be plus and minus. So you perform overloading on two factors here. You perform overloading on single factor here. Okay, so basically what is overloading? I am performing more than one function on the particular operator, and in C++ you need to know about what are the operator you perform on. So it is increment, decrement are also there. So it is usually plus, minus, greater than. On this operator you perform the operator overloading, and objects and structures are associated with them. Once you get objects in your head, basically a class should be created. So when you come to the syntax of the operator overloading, you need a class which is defined by the class name and an access specifier, and you'll have a return type as you want to return the value, and you'll have the operator symbol on which you're supposed to do the operation, and you'll pass the arguments. You'll be having the body. So in operator overloading, you basically have two things. The first one is unary Operator overloading in unary operators and operator overloading in binary operator. In unary operator, what happens is you'll be performing the overloading on single operator only. In binary, what happens? You'll be performing the operation on two operators. Understood this much? Please take down this quickly. Understood? Or you want me to explain it once again? Okay, let's move with an example for operator overloading. So firstly, what I told, I want a class. So, okay. So I want a class. Let the class name be count. Okay. So let me not take it as okay. Next, I need a access specifier wherein I have an access specifier, and later I'll be having a value on which I need to perform the overloading. So here I'll take a integer and I'll give it name as value. Okay. So next what happens? So I need to initialize. So basically in this program, what am I going to do is I'm taking the value and I'm using the plus plus operator, that is increment operator, to increment the value of a given integer. So maybe, so what is my this thing over here? Increment a number using overloading fun operator. So this is the program which I'm going to do. So I want to do an increment and over a number using overloading. Okay. So what do I do now? Firstly, when I have to increment a value, I need a value on which I should increment. So here value is nothing but a number where it should be incremented. So next what I do is I'll be taking another access specifier public. Why? Because I want to initialize the value. So here, in order to give the value, what I do is I'll use constructors. So what are constructors? We did it in the previous class. Anyone has any idea what are constructors? So constructors are nothing but a special type of methods that are automatically called. Okay. So how we call a function, how we call a method, in the same way, constructors are also a special type of method. Okay. So I told you previously how you call the function, in the same way you will be calling the method. Okay. So in the same way, a constructor in C++ is a special method that is automatically called. Okay. So I need to create a constructor in order to give a value. So in order to give the value, so what is my class name over here? It is count. Okay. So count, and I want to give value. Let me take it as 6. So if I increment 6, what should I get? I should be getting somewhere around 7. Okay. So here I'm using, this makes your job simple. Here I'm using, firstly, I'm taking a class which is known as count, and I'm creating a integer value over here. And next, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to push a value to this class using a constructor wherein I'm taking the class count and the value I'm initializing it to 6. Okay. So next what I should do? I should do the overloading operation. So I have to overload. So what am I trying to do here? Using increment function. So what is increment function? Plus plus. Okay. So overload plus plus. So I'll take it as void operator plus plus, and what am I supposed to do? I want to increment. What should be incremented? The value should be incremented. So whatever is called within the value should be incremented. Understood this much? So basically I'm having a class which is known as count. I'm passing the value using the constructor. Now I'm performing overloading operation on the value which need to be incremented. So what is the thing that I need to be incremented? That is value. So I'm performing the overloading operation on that. So next I want to display. So I'll take it as void display. So for display, what do I give? It is cout. So what need to be displayed? Count need to be displayed. So I'll take the string. So there will be displaying count is what is the value. So this is string. What will I get in the output? Count, these two dots, and the incremented value. And I want it in a new line. Okay. And I need to so it is like this, and open the flower brackets. Close the flower brackets. Is this much clear, people? I know it's a bit difficult for you people to understand, but understand the flow as and when you practice it and know the previous concepts better, you will get to know. So initially I have a count class wherein I have a value. I want to increment this value. So I'm passing the value using the constructor, and now I want to perform the overloading operation. So what am I doing? I'm overloading this value. Okay. So next I want to display the value. So I'm going with cout, and I'm trying to, so this is not closed. So I want to close that class brackets. Okay. So this is the declaration part. So if I go to the main thing, what I do need, I want int main wherein So I told these have objects and structures. So obviously when I have the count class, I want an object for that count class. So it will be count. So what will be my object? Let me take it as count 1. So now what I should do? I should call the void operator. So in order to increment, what should I call? I should call this operator to increment the value of 6 and for it to become 7. Okay. So call the void operator, that is. So how do I call it? So when I'm calling, if you have noticed, when I'm calling each and every function or the methods, I'm supposed to call it using the objects only. So if you take an example here, so firstly I created the objects and I'm calling it with the help of objects. Can you notice that? Okay. So here, firstly I have created the object and later I'm calling this function using the object itself. Okay. So here also, what do I need? What is my object? Count 1 is my object. What is my overloading operator? That is, my operator is plus plus and my object is count 1. Later, I need to display this count 1 dot this. Okay. And return 0. So why do I call? Oh, done. So why do I call this as overloading? Because see, firstly, I'm overloading the function here. I'm incrementing the value using this. And again, I'm putting the same increment value here also. So how did I call it here? So I was calling using annual sum. I was having some void, some name and calling it. So here what was this void operator? Instead of using this void operator, what do? I take the symbol and overload it again. Understood? So it is known as function overloading, wherein I'm calling the operator plus plus. Here I do not use any keyword to overload the operator, only the symbols will be used. So if you can notice here, it was the operator symbol and later I was having the arguments. Understood? So I use the operator symbol in both the condition, that is in the declaration and also while calling the function in order to overload the operator, and I'm incrementing the value by 1 using the objects. So you can't do anything without objects. So when you have a class, having an object is a parallel thing. Understood this much? Or you have any doubts? So go back and see what is constructors first and go back and see how do you call up a function and how do you call up a method. And once you see that and come back here, things will be easier for you. Understood? Please take down this. Yes or no? If you have doubt, I can explain it to you once again. Hello, I'm asking you people only. You didn't get it or what?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, take down.
You want me to scroll down? Okay. So let's see to the last topic of the day, that is how to access your files in C++. So basically in C++ you can have three things. So either you can read a file, or you can write the file, or you'll be having combination wherein you can both read and write. Okay. So while accessing the files in C++, either you can read a file and you can write a file, you can write to a file, or you can have a combination wherein you can have both read and write. So before doing that, you should add a library. So okay, let me show it here only. Before doing that, so in string we were including the libraries, right? In the same way, we need to include a library which is known as hash include fstring. Okay, so this is the library which you need to add in order to access the files. So without this library, you can't either read a file, write a file, or anything can happen. So as I told you already, we'll be having two conditions. So the first condition, in order to write to a file, right, we'll be using something like offstring. Okay. So in order to read from file, you'll be using if string. So if you want to both read and write, you'll be using F-string. So accordingly, you can declare in your main function wherein which operation you need to perform. So if you want to perform write only, you can use offstring. If you want to perform read only, you can use F-string. But generally, we use F-string because we will be performing both read as well as write. We can read from a file or we can also write from a file. Okay, so I'll give you the syntax for this. So in order to write from a file, so first before all that, let's create a file. So in order to create a file, you will be using something called my file and file name dot text. So it will be saved in text format, so you will be using dot text. So this helps in creating and open a text file. Next, if you have to, so create and open a text file. So if you have to write to a file, then you'll be using something called my file and the content whatever you need. So what happens when you create and open a file using int main? So you'll open a file which is having the file name xyz in the form of text, and in order to write to a file, you will be writing it as my file and the content what you need to write inside the file. And after every operation, you should not forget to close the file. So every operation you should close the file. So you'll be using my file dot close. So this helps in closing a file. So this is how you write on a file. First, you need to open a file, you need to write on the file whatever the content you have, and you need to close the file. In a similar way, if you want to read from the file, you'll be telling it as my read file and whatever the file name you have dot txt. So this helps in writing on a reading of a file, and again after read operation what are you supposed to do? You are supposed to close the file. So if you have some file like C++.txt in your system, if you want to open it, you'll be opening it as file name.txt. In order to write, you'll be putting up the content. In order to close, you'll be putting my file.close. In order to read, you'll be taking it as my read file and whatever the file name is. And the file will pop up on the screen. Is this much clear? Okay, you can just take down this and we can wind up the session. By mistake, it was disconnected. Hello? 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 Hello, ma'am. Anything, any such topic?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. Do you want me to explain the function calling once again? How to call a function, how to call a method, those stuffs? Okay. Let's do one thing. Let's brush up everything so that even you people will have a any other topic like objects and all which you wanted me to repeat. Any topic you are facing difficulty, you can tell me. No problem. Okay. So we started from what is programming language. So coming to programming languages. We started from what is programming languages. So programming languages are basically the piece of code which help us to make things easier. And there were many sort in that. We started from switch level programming wherein we were having 0 and 1. Later we came to assembly level programming. Later we had the C and C++, which was object oriented program. Later we moved to Java and Python. and other stuff. So this is the evolution what we had, and we saw the difference between the text editor and the compiler. So what was a text editor and what was a compiler, and also we saw about IDEs, that is integrated development environment. So what happens in IDEs is you'll be having everything sorted. Like you don't have to worry about anything. You'll have the packages. If you just include them, you can work on a particular application. That is, it may be Android or something like that. In text editor, you can have a common text editor for all the languages, and you can run the code over there. And also we saw the difference between C, C++, and Java, and later how C++ was originated, because there was difficulty in writing the program in assembly level code, and there was a need for conversion. We didn't go with the assembly level programming, and we came to the C and C++. So, and in C++, what is the extension we use in order to save the C++? It is .cpp. While saving a C++ file, we use .cpp file. So this was the introduction what we had with respect to the C++ classes. Okay. So next, coming to what? If I have to tell like the introduction to the C++, coming to the syntax, it was very clear. We can see here only. So include IO stream. IO stream means input output stream. We use this. This is called as the header file. And using namespace std means we can use parameter for object and variables for standard libraries. And using int main, we'll go up to the program. And this is the body of the program wherein you can write whatever is required. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was the printf statement. Print statement. So for printing, we use cout over here, which was widely used in all the three sessions, all the previous sessions, and we can print whatever we want here in the using printf statement. And if we want new line, it was very common, which you knew before also, we would have used /n. Okay, so this was the next thing. And next, coming to comments, there were two types of comment, single line and multi-line comments. Single line comment was given by this, and multi-line comments is where I'm using a slash and a star. So those was with respect to single and double line comments. And coming to the variables. So we have different variables in C++ where we have integer, float, double, character, string, and bool. So yesterday I told you people to just note the difference between what is long int, short int, and all. Did you people go and see that? Okay. So we have different variables, and while creating a variable, we have the general syntax, that is type variable. Type variable, and we give the values. This is the next thing what we studied about. So integer, you know, it is the whole numbers, and float is the decimal number, and character, here it is 32 bits and double will be 64 bits, and we have character, and we have string and bool. Okay. So next was declaration of the variable. So how to declare a variable. So this was the condition, type variable and int. That is, for example, if you want to declare an integer, you can do it like this. So this was the next thing what we studied. And later, we came across constants. So what is constants? So unchangeable variables. There are two types, namely variables and constant. If it is a variable, we can change the value. That is, if it is x, we can change the value of x to 10 or 11 or something like that. But if we declare a variable which is known as constant. We cannot change the variable in the whole of the program, and we should use the same value to the whole of the program. And the next thing what we studied was cin. So cin is basically used to take the user input, and using cin we can take the user input for a defined program. So that was with respect to the input. And next was the data types in C++. So what were the data types in C++? So as we already saw, it was int, float, double, boolean, and character. And these were the different type of data types in your C++, which will be same for your C and also Java and also in your Python. So basically, what data types is common in all the programming except one or two. You'll be having the same type of data in all the programming languages. Okay. So in this, numerical data is int, float, and double, and the rest are the different data. Okay. So next, what we studied was strings. So in string, there were different things what we studied. So does anyone remember what we studied in string? So basically in string, there are many concepts that we covered. So firstly, what is string? So string is a type which is used to store a sequence of character. Basically, it is a text. Okay, many a times the string will be text. And in order to include a string, we need to add a keyword, add a hash include string over here. So hash include string in order to access the string. So this was the first thing which you need to study about. And later in string, we heard one thing which was known as concatenation. So concatenation is nothing but addition. So addition of two strings is known as concatenation, wherein we have the what can I say, provision to add two strings. That is, if I have string A of a different data type and string B of a different data type. So I had given an example of my own name, wherein string A was Harshita and string B is equal to Dipanjali. Then I can concatenate these two strings, that is, add these two strings by using A plus B. So that is nothing but your concatenation of two strings. Okay. And next was adding two numbers in string. So I had given you the example of 10 and 20. If we basically add 10 and 20 and plus 20, we'll be getting 30. But if we add it in string type, we'll be getting something like 10, 20. Why? Because it is a string. Okay. So this was the next thing. And later we also studied one more topic, that is to know the length of the string. So in order to know the length of the string, the keyword what we can use is, so if we have string text size, text dot length or text dot size. By using these two keywords, we can know the length of a string. Okay. So that was the next one what we studied. And also the next one was accessing the string. How to access a string. So basically, if I have a string by name, string name, my string, and the name of the string is hello. In order to access the third letter, I'll be writing it as my string within this bracket. I'll go for 3, and my output will be, I taught you something called indexing, the positive indexing and the negative indexing. What I taught you, the positive indexing will be something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I count from this end, that is 0 to 1, 2, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 4, 5. So in indexing, what happens is I'll give the 0th value to 1, and first value to 2, second value to 3, and so on. So if it is negative indexing, what happens? It will start from, it will not be from 0, it will be from -1 directly, and 5 will be holding the number -1, and -2 will be 4, and -3 will be 3, and so on. This is positive and negative indexing. So if I want to access the third thing, it will be double L. I mean the second L, 0, 1, 2, 3. So that is known as accessing of string. And you can also change the string. So change the string character. So if I want to replace that L by something else like M, I can use this. Then my output will be HELMO. So this will be my output, wherein the third variable 0, 1, 2, 3, that is the second L, will be replaced by M. So this is possible in string. And we can also take the user input from the string using cin. Okay, that is the second thing. And next we had math functions. Next we had math function, wherein functions like max, min, square root. So these kind of functions we could have used directly without any logic. Using any logic, we can directly print out the output by taking this way. Cout is equal to, so minimum of two numbers, that is 5 and 10, will fetch me 5 direct. So these are known as maths keywords, and also I had shared one file with you people if you remember. So if you go through that and see what are all the functions and just try to execute them, you can see various type of math functions. And later we came to conditional statement, and the first one was the if statement. So if statement was very simple, and the syntax go like this: if and certain condition, and the body of the and here will be the body, wherein the if statement, you give the condition over here and write the body, that is the code sequence which you want to execute inside the body. If the condition is true, then the sequence of code will be executed. If the condition is false, then the sequence of code will not be executed. So the extended form of this would be if and else condition, wherein I add a else condition over here, and if in case I have a next condition, then what's happening is I can give the next condition over here, that is the body of code. Or else what happens is, if this condition is false, if condition is false, then it comes to else condition, and this will be executed. So there is one more condition which is known as nested if else, and here what happens is, else I'll be giving another if condition, and again I can give else, and using else if condition I can go on through the statements. So this was the next thing what we learned. And later we had another two statements, which was do and while statements. So do and do while statement, even that was very simple. In while loop, what was happening is, we were just giving while, and we were giving the condition like what we were doing in the if condition. This was the simple syntax, and later we used to have the body later we used to have the body wherein the rest of the body was executed. But in do while what happens is, so I'll be having a do condition over here, and irrespective of whether the condition, the condition will not be there, I'll be having the code block, and irrespective of whatever the condition might be in while later. So it wasn't bothering about the while, and irrespective of that, I used to have this do condition executed, and later while will be executed. The condition in the while will be executed. So irrespective of whether the condition is true or not, this do statement will be executed. So that was the another thing. And later we had for loops. So in for loops we used to have the three conditions. The first one was the initialization, and the second one was the condition, and the third one was the increment. So this was the kind of syntax we used to use for loops, and we used to have the body of code name. Okay, so this was with respect to for loops what we used to have. And later we had another two statements, which was break and continue. Break was used to break the certain loop along with the, so never break and continue can be used without the help of your what can I say? Without the help of your conditional loops, what we saw before, we cannot use break and continue individually. So we want a condition, and later we'll be having break and continue. So if it is continuing, it will be moving to the next loop of the code. If it is break, then the loop will terminate and move to the next. And the next concept what we had was arrays. So array is nothing but what I can say is they are used to store multiple values. So arrays are basically used to store multiple values, and the declaration of the array is made using square bracket. If in case I have string and car, I can declare 4. So that means the array is having basically 4 items within it, which can be later initialized. So this is how we used to follow array, and like how we used to do in string, here also we can replace or change the element of the array like how we used to do in string. So I showed you somewhere here. So here by taking the string indexing, we can just replace it in the same way. We can also replace this element of the array. Okay, this was the next thing. And later we came to another important topic, which was references and pointers, which makes the C++ unique from references and pointers. So this will be making C++ unique from other programming languages, that is either Java or Python. And what is references? Reference is a variable that will point to an existing variable, and we can create references using ampersand symbol. Okay. So we can create references using ampersand symbol. And later I gave you a few examples with respect to references. And one more thing is that ampersand operator will be used to create a reference value, and it will be holding the address of the reference point. That is one thing. So when it comes to ampersand, we'll be having the address. Okay. And the next one was pointers. So in pointers, so what is pointer basically is a pointer is a variable again. So pointer is nothing very special. It is a variable. And what does it store? It does not store the value. It will store the memory address. Okay. The pointer is not going to store the value, it will be storing the memory address. That is the difference between the references and pointers. So always in pointers what happens is it will be storing the memory address, and pointer is always indicated by star. Okay, so that is used to point the variable which is known as star. So these were the basic things what we learned, and also like how we can change the element of a string and also a array. We can also change the element of the pointer however we want. Modifications can be done. And the next is the functions. Like I'll be explaining functions in a bit detail. You can just note down stuff if you haven't understood before or previously. So firstly, as I told in the previous class also, oh, you could have told me, right, that my screen is not visible. Okay, I was just typing everything what I was explaining. That is your programming languages, the concatenation and all those stuffs. Do speak up and tell if there's something, okay? So next we'll be moving to functions. So there was some confusion with respect to functions, right? So let's see what is a function. So basically what are these functions means? Functions are a set of code. So it is nothing but a code which is used to perform certain actions. So function is nothing but a piece of code and it is used to perform a certain actions. So let me go to the syntax of the function so that you understand better. So firstly, void. So I have been telling you this, if it is a void, it is a non-returnable. So if it is integer or something like that, we can return it. If it is a void, I can't return the function. So void my function, and I'll be having a set of codes. Okay. So here my function will be the name of the function. Void means you cannot return any value from the function. So this is the first thing, right? Let me just print something here. Function is created. Okay. This is my main function. Okay. So here I'm creating a function. Why do you create this function is, consider you want this piece of code 10 times in the program what you're writing. Okay, this piece of code is required 10 times in the program what you're writing. Instead of writing this 10 times, you'll be writing this one time and calling this function wherever it is required. So how to call a function? So it is simple again. So you have your int main. Okay. And what do you do? So what is the name of your function? It is my function. That's it. And your return type will be 0. This is very simple. And this you can use in, it's not like it is now, it is in 69th line wherein I'm calling my function. You can use in 256th line or 390 line or 1000th line. Wherever you want, you can use the same function or call the same function, that is my function, and wherever you call this function, the code within this my function will be executed. Understood this much? So you'll be having the main function wherein you'll have a certain set of codes which need to be executed. The first thing. Later, you can call this function anywhere in your program. It may be in your 50th line, 100th line, or 1000th line, or 5000th line. That does not bother me. And in whichever line you call up this function, the code in the main function will be executed. Understood? So this is with respect to function, which is very simple. So you'll understand as and when you get used to it or type the code. Just understand the topic and where it can be executed, why it should be executed, know these steps. And this common syntax which you need to know, which is very obvious. Okay. Any doubt with respect to function, people? Anything you don't know with respect to function? Okay. So the next thing is, so I told you if it is a void here, I cannot return the value. So in order to return the value, I should make it as non-void, that is it may be an integer or anything. Okay, this is the next thing. So what are function parameters? So next we come to function parameter. So here I have int something and I can pass a certain parameter within this. For example, I say parameter 1, parameter 2, parameter 3. I can pass these parameters inside the function and these are known as the parameters. So for example, I can take string fb. Okay, and here I can pass the name. Okay, so firstly, in order to pass the parameter, I should give a string name to it, and also declaration is very important, whether it's an integer or it's a string or it's a character, whatever, the declaration is very important and the name. So as in all I call the function, I should call up the name which should pop out. So f string, this is a string, and name, I have given the name. So this is how you declare the function. And there is something known as default parameter. So if I give f name has something like ABC over here, and I have my function wherein I haven't passed any argument. In this case, what happens is the default name ABC will be printed when I run the code. So this is known as default parameters. Okay. In the same way, I can have multiple parameters. Multiple means, as I was explaining you in the morning, it is something more than one. So here I can have an integer. The name has age. And here I can also pass a number which is 34. So here also I can give the default value which is 12 or 30 according. Okay. This is the next thing where we can have multiple parameter with respect to this. And the next one is the return. So how to return a value? So I was telling you if I use void, I cannot return a value. If I'm using something like integer, I can return a value. So let me take an example. I have two integers. I have one integer as well. I have an integer which is called x, and I I want to return a value. So what is my return value? I want something like 5 plus x. Okay. So next what happens in this case, I can return the value. And here what happens is by declaring int main, and I should call the value of x because the integer x should be given over here and there should be a value that should be assigned to x and I will give it as my function 3. So then the output what I'll be giving is the 3 will go over here and 5 plus x, that is 5 plus 3 will be added on, which comes to a, and then return the 1. So this is with respect to return. Okay. And we have something known as, there were two things which I taught you. One was call by value and the second was call by reference. So what happens in call by value? So what example we studied till now is call by value, wherein I am concentrated only on the value which is present in the particular integer or a string or something like that. So what happens in reference, I will be concentrated in the value present in particular address. And call by reference, what happens is I will not be concentrated about the value what is there in the integer or the display. I'll be particularly concentrated about the address. So if I have a number 1, a house in number 1, let me take an example wherein I have a girl by name Lena who stays in number 1, house number 1 or door number 1. So in call by value, what happens? I'll be concentrated on Lena. I'm not worried whether Lena will stay in number 1 or number 2 or number 3. So I'm not worried about that. I'm worried only about Lena. But in call in reference, what happens? I'm not worried about whether it's Lena or someone else. So I'm worried about only the value which is present in door number 1 or number 1. So that is the major difference between your call by value and call by reference. Okay. So next we had a topic. In morning we saw something called operator overloading. In the same way, we had a topic known as function overloading. So as I told you, overloading means giving excess of function to the, giving more than one function to the same values or same names, or multiple function can have the same name basically. So there will be multiple functions which will be called up by a same name. So if I have to give an example for this, then I'll be having my function, and I'll be having the value int x. And again, what I do is, instead of int, I'll give float, but the function name will be my function only. And I'll give float y. Like this, I can have either double or character. So what am I doing? I'm having the same name, but the parameters what I'm passing are different. So that was the main agenda of function overloading. Here we had 3 rules which we followed. The first rule was either different type of parameter, that is like this what we have done here. It's a int, float, like that we are having different types of parameters. And the second one was we were having different number of parameters. So here, if I take an example, if this is also an integer and I have something like int x over here also, then what happens here is the system will be having the ambiguity wherein whether to consider the first my function and the second my function. So this is not possible. So if we are having different, either we should have different type of parameter or we should have different number of parameter, and that will go to y over here. Okay. And the third rule would say different sequence. So that is, if I have a sequence 1, 2 in the first condition, I should have a sequence 2, 1 in the second condition. This was function overloading. Just a second. Yeah. So this was function overloading, what we saw. And also I have shared a Word document with your ma'am. If you have seen that, I have given different objection handling over there. And also we saw about type conversion. There were two types of type conversion. One was implicit and other was explicit. So implicit is the converter or the compiler itself will convert the required things. That is, if there is no, what can I say, no enough space in the existing thing. If I have a number which is float of 32 bits, but it is somewhere around 45 bits, and the compiler or the system itself convert the float number into a double, wherein the double is having 64 bits. But in explicit type conversion, what happens is you yourself will be converting a particular number, that is integer to float or float to integer or character or string, according to your need or according to the programmer's need. So that is explicit type conversion. Implicit is one which the system does it for itself. And next comes the quite a difficult part, I would say, that is object-oriented program, OOP. Okay. So what do you mean by this object-oriented program? Firstly, so here what we'll be doing is we will be using classes, objects, and methods to write the code. Okay. So what happens here is we'll be using certain classes or objects and methods to write the code. So even I taught you in the previous class. So firstly, why we would go with the object-oriented program is that the execution is very easier and we have code reusability and the structure of the program will be very easy. So this is the reason we go with the object-oriented program, which makes our job simpler when compared to the previous stuffs. So what are these classes and objects? So I have been giving the same example from two classes. So if I take an example of class, so if class is something called car, then if I want objects within it, then the objects will be something like BMW or the Ford. So I can say objects are the category of class or objects are the subset of the class. So classes and objects will be going hand in hand. Okay. So whenever you create a class, it's very obvious that you create an object for the execution of the class. This is the first thing. And also you need to know another two stuffs, which is attributes and methods. Okay. So what is attributes I can say attributes define the classes or the object. So if it is a car, then the color of the car or height of the car, these will be the attributes of the car. So coming to methods, always keep one thing in mind. Your methods are something similar to your functions. I will not say it is like 100% same as that of your what functions, but there are a few similarities between your methods and functions. So what is that is the method of calling. So I showed you here how we call a function. So we have a main function and we have a declaration function and we have a main function. So we are calling a function every time for the execution of these codes. In the same way, we can call the method for the execution of the code which is present in the main class. Okay, remember that. So it's very simple, guys, if you understand. So first thing, like where you face difficulty is function. That is calling of the function which I taught you. And later next comes the class and the objects. So just understand in their languages, that is the normal English language, then put up it in a coding or syntactical form. So that makes your programming easy always. So class will be your car and the objects will be your types of car. And their attributes will be the things which define your car and the method is how you drive your car. Simple. So you keep in your mind this example only so that it becomes easier for you when you write down the programs. Okay. So this is the first thing. So if I have to show you this, how basically this works, before that, let me go with the access specifiers. So there are three types of access specifiers. So the three types of access specifiers are public. So public means it can be accessed outside the class also. Next is private. Private means, any idea? Private means it can be accessed only inside the specified class. So that is known as public. So if you remember, I gave you an example of your Instagram. So wherein what is your public account and what is your private account. The same things work over here. Next, I'll be having protected, where they can be used in inherited classes. Okay. So these are the common things what we use. I mean the common access specifiers what we use. So let's move with the example with respect to creating the class and the object. Just concentrate and see over here. So first, what did I tell? I want a class. So you should declare a keyword class and you should give the name to the class. My class. So this is the name of class. Okay. This is the first thing which you're going to do. So what are you going to do? You're declaring a keyword class and you're giving a name to that particular class. Done? So I've been telling you in the for previous session also, once you declare, give an access specifier, that is public here, it may be public or private or whatever it might be. So next what you need to do. So you need to give the value. So I'll be giving something like in my number. So my number. So within this, what I'll be So what is this here? This is a attribute. So I can have n number of attribute wherein I will be having int my number, string my string. This is a attribute. And always you need to close this. So this is how you declare a class. So firstly, what you're doing, you're declaring the keyword class and you're taking a name for a class which is known as my class. Okay. So next what you're doing, you're giving the access specifiers. And later you're declaring the attributes of your class. That is, I'm having an integer which is known as my number and I'm having a string which is known as my string. That's it. This is the first part of the class, that is, you're declaring it. So next what should happen? You should have the main program. So you'll have int main, and I had told you before, what you need to create, you need to create an object when you have a class. So classes are related with objects. So you need to create an object. So you declare or define the class, that is the first part. And later you need to create an object. But for which class do you need to create an object? That is for my class. So for my class, you need to create an object wherein I call it as my object. Okay. Then for this my object, you have to set these attributes in order to fetch the value. So what happens is my object dot. So what is the name you have given here to the attribute? My number. And you can pass the value of the number, whatever it may be. And again, my object dot my string. And you can pass the value. So what is that? Hello world. And you can print these stuffs. My object dot my num. My object dot my string. That's it. So you'll get the output as 12 and hello world. So understood this much? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So did you know what is class and what is object, how to define an object, or any doubts you still have? So just two types, you have a class and you have an object. So class you'll be having in the main program, like the declaration, object you'll be having in your main program. You'll have the attributes over here and you'll create an object and pass the value using the attribute and you'll print them out. So this is very simple. Okay, so this is the example with respect to classes and object. So next I told you we have something known as methods. And I also told you we'll be calling the methods as we call the functions. So in methods, you're having two types. The first one is inside class, and the second one is outside class. Okay. So in methods, so what is method is? Methods are also functions, okay, which belong to class. So all these objects, attributes, methods, these are all the functions which belong to the main class, that is class. Okay, so those are known as methods. Okay, so next what we'll be having is, so how do I define this? So I'll be having first one is inside and the second one is outside. So firstly, when it comes to all these stuffs, I should have my class, a class which is created, and once the class is created, you should have a access specifier, and I'll call something known as void. Void is non-returnable, and I'll call a method over here. Okay. So within this method, I can define the parameters later, or I can define the body or whatever. See out what I want. The method is executed. Again, this is the first part. I'm done with this. And later, what should I do? I should go to my main program. And here, I should create an object. Where I should create the object for my class, I should create an object which is known as my object. And later, what should I do now? I should call up this method. How my object dot my method. So now what happens once I run this program, this method will be executed. This is how I run or use methods in C++. Okay. Clear with object, methods, functions, and attributes. So if we declare this inside the class, it will be known as insider. If we define this after this bracket, then it is known as outside. That is the difference between your insider and your outside. Okay. So the next topic what we had is constructors. Okay. So what does this constructors means? So you have two topics, constructors and destructors. So construction means building something. Destruction means removing something or demolishing something. So it is same as that in your C programming also. So in constructor, what happens? You will be assigning the value or giving the value to a particular variable or the function. In destructor, what happens is you will be deleting the value. So that's the only difference between your constructors and destructor. Constructor helps to build the value, destructor helps in deleting the value. So how do I use my constructor is, so if I have class, my class, public, and here what I do, I take up this my class and I'll have a parameter, I'll have a braces, and later if I want I can have a parameter. So if I have braces within this my class, it means that the constructor is created. So this means that the constructor is created and you can pass the required parameter within the constructor, and later in the second half of the program, like what we were doing here, you can use the int main and call up an object, create the object and call the constructor for the declaration of the particular values. And we can also pass particular values inside this constructor, like it may be integer x or integer y. Required parameter can be passed through the constructors. Okay, so this is the next thing what we learned, and later we have a topic known as, and oh yeah, and I didn't tell you about the destructors, right? So destructors is something we use to delete the object, and it is a, what can I say, reciprocal of the constructor. So what constructor does, destructor will be doing exactly the opposite of that. So while using a destructor, we use a syntax wherein I use this symbol followed by the class name, and later I'll be giving the both. So this is the syntax which I use for destructors. So this will be deleting the parameter which are not required. So when do we use this destructor is if the program is finishing the execution, and when I don't want the local variables, and when you call to delete a operation. So when you have to delete an operation or you don't want the local variable and the program is finishing its execution, in order to delete a particular thing, I can use this destructor. Okay. And also there are certain rules which you need to follow in destructor. The first one is you need to use this symbol. And the second one is you cannot have more than one destructor in one class. So if you are having one class, if for example, if I have in my class, then the my class should have only one destructor, not more than one destructor. Okay. And I told you here, I can pass the parameter. Yeah, here. So int x wherein I can pass the parameter, but in destructor, as you are deleting something, you are not having a provision to pass the parameter in destructor. You can pass the parameter only in constructor. And in constructor, you'll be having a return type. In destructor, you will not be having any type. So basically, destructor does not allow any parameter specification or what can I say, return type. Why? Because the only job the destructor is doing is it is just deleting a variable. So in order to delete something, I have no need of like declaring a variable or returning a variable or something like that. So what happens here is only the deletion will be happening by using the certain syntax. Okay. So this is known as destructors. And the very next topic what we studied was encapsulation. So I gave you an example of groundnut. So what does encapsulation means? So basically I'll be having something which is coated with a protecting layer, that I can say it as encapsulation. So I told you the example of groundnut wherein I'll be having the seeds inside and the shell outside. That shell will be known as encapsulation for the groundnut seeds, and it is protecting it. In the same way, we will be having certain data over here. So in C or C++ or any other programming language, basically we'll be having the data, and we cannot like give the access to each and everyone in the hierarchy. So in order to protect the data, we'll be using this encapsulation method. So you can have a doubt here wherein why can't private be used? So the public, private, and The protected attributes were access specifiers were used just to protect the data. So one was present in private. What happens is no one outside the class can access the data. So in spite of this, what is the need of having this encapsulation method, and also what is the need? So what is the need is it has better control over the data, and also it increases the security of data. So in private, what happens is like if it is someone is inside the class, they can access, and if there is something outside the class and any accessing issues are there, we cannot resolve it using just the private, public, and protected clauses. So we'll be having this encapsulation method, wherein encapsulation method is having two things, that is get and set method. Get and set. So it is also known as getter and setter method also. So what is this get and set? So firstly, I'm having set, and later I'll be having get. So what do you mean by set? So set is nothing but setting a particular variable to the setting a particular value to the variable. So in set, what I'll be doing using the syntax what set number. So let me take the number is in n, and I'm setting the number to n. So what am I basically doing here? I'm setting a particular value to the number. So first set is happen. Okay, so this has become sound. Setting of a number is done. Okay. So next what I'll do is, in order here first I'm setting the number. Later what I should do, I should get the number. That is fetch the number. So in order to fetch that number, I'll be using get method. So what I'll do, int get salary, and I'll be telling it as written salary. So it's not salary, it's number. Okay. Return set a number, get a number, and return a number. So basically, the value which I have stored over here will be coming down to here, and the accessing will be given. And after this, what happens? You may ask, is it enough if I set a number and get a number? But where do you pass the number? So that happens in your main program. So in int main, what happens is, so you'll be having some class, and you'll be creating some object, and later you'll be referring to object dot. So what do I want? I want to set number first. So set a number to, let me say it is 1000, and later I want to get the number, object dot get number, so that this particular number will be fetched to this. So this is the getter setter method which you use for encapsulation in order to protect the data. Understood? So encapsulation is basically used to increase the security of the program and the structure of the program, and this is done using getter and setter method. Okay, so this was the next topic what we covered, and next we had something called as inheritance. So I gave you an example. What do you mean by inheritance? just taking the certain characteristics of one thing to another thing. So inheriting the characteristics. So firstly, if I take an example of you people only, so you inherit the characteristics of your parents. So if I consider your parent has a parent class and you has a child class, the child will be so I have a child class and I have a parent class. So what will be happening here? The child will be inheriting all the characteristics which is present in the parent class. So we also call this as a, so what is it called? Base class, and this is known as derived class. Okay. So in inheritance, basically what is happening is the child class will be inheriting all the features of the parent class. The child class will be called as the derived class and the parent class will be called as the base class. Okay. This is the first thing which you need to understand. And coming to the program, so how do you inherit all these things? So firstly, when it is a I need a base class. So let me take the keyword class and I have a car. So I have a vehicle. Next, I have an access specifier. And next, I have a string which gives me the brand. So the brand would be code. Okay. Next, I'll be having void out. So this is the attribute wherein I'll be having some body. Okay. So this is my base class. So next what I want is my derived class or the child class. So what happens in my derived class or the child class is, so I'll be having derived class. How do I derive the characteristics? Excuse me. Characteristics of the parent class to the child class. So the syntax what you follow is, so the class, the new class name. So let car be my class. Then you put a colon and you give the access specifier and your main class name. What is the main class name? It's vehicle. That's it. And later you'll be having some body inside this. So whatever the code you want. And this is the way you inherit the properties of the base class to the derived class. So you declare a name of the derived class and also what you're doing, you'll put a colon and you're specifying from where or which class you are deriving the variables of the properties. And this is how you inherit the properties of the base class or the parent class to the child class. Okay. So basically why we use this inheritance is again the reusability of code and also reuse of the methods and attributes. The code reusability and methods and attributes we will be using this. So in this inheritance we have different types of inheritance. So the first one is multi-level inheritance. And the second one is multiple inheritance. So what do you mean by multi-level inheritance? So firstly here we are having just a base class and a derived class. So here I can say something we have from parent to a child. So imagine I have grandparent B. So what is happening? Your parents are inheriting the characteristics from your grandparents, and later from your parents, you're inheriting the characteristics. So this is known as multi-level, wherein more than two levels are present. Okay, you can also have your great grandparents also according to the need of the program. But here it happens step by step. Nothing jumps from grandparent to child directly. So if you have a great grandparent, so that it passes to the grandparent first and later to the parent and later to the child. This is the sequence what you follow in your what? Multi-level inheritance, and here it will be only one, what is that, one parent class or the base class, and the rest will be the derived class. So here the grandparent will be the parent class, and your parent and your child, everything will be your derived class. So next what you are having is multiple inheritance. So basically what happens in multiple inheritance is you'll be having more than one parent class. So if I take an example of mom and dad and a child. So basically what happens here is the child will be inheriting the characteristics of mom also, and you will be inheriting the characteristics of your dad also. So these two are the parent classes. I'll be having more than one parent class, wherein the base class and the derived class will be taking the properties from both the parent class. This is known as multiple inheritance, wherein you will be having more than one parent or base class. Okay, so that was the next thing what we studied. Multiple inheritance and multi-level inheritance. Okay, so our next topic was polymorphism. So what does polymorphism means? Polymorphism means having many forms. So polymorphism is basically having many forms, and it occurs when we have many classes that are related to each other by inheritance. So I'll be having more than one classes, maybe like what I told over here, in this multi-level or multiple hierarchy only, I'm having more than one classes wherein I'm having either two or three classes. And you can also see that when I'm having two or three classes, they're interrelated by inheritance. So either it is a multi-level inheritance or a multiple inheritance. When I have more than two classes, I can have a property of inheritance over there. So basically polymorphism and inheritance are interrelated, I could say. Okay. So the same class having different attributes or the different forms is known as polymorphism. A simple thing to go with, and we saw a few examples in the morning too. And why and when to use inheritance and polymorphism. So why does inheritance and polymorphism go hand in hand, and why we use this is because it is used again, it is used for code reusability and reuse attributes and existing class when you create a new class. So there will be a existing class which is a parent class. When I create a new class, that is a I have a base class. When I create a new class that is a derived class, I can reuse the attributes from the existing class only. I need not to again redefine everything. I can just reuse the attributes using this. So hence inheritance and polymorphism are two important things which I need in C++. Okay. And the last thing what we saw was Basically, when it comes to files, you'll be having a few actions. One, create a file, open a file, read a file, write a file, and close it. Right? So first, in order to have anything with file, I need to create a file. Either I have to read or write a file, I should open the file. Then I should either read a file, write a file, or close the file. So here, basically, I have three things. So what are those three things is off stream, if stream, and the last one is f stream. So these are all the include statements. So we what include them in the top, wherein I write #include and within the braces off stream, if stream, or f stream. So what does this off stream denote? So off stream denote that I'm creating a file and writing into a file. Okay. So next, what does this if stream mean? Read from a file. So what is this f stream then? So it performs both the actions, that is read and write. So these are the #include files which you use. If you use offstream, you can create and write to a file. If you use fstream, you can read from a file. If you use fstream, you can both read and write from a file. So these are the include functions. But you'll be having certain what? Syntax in order to read or write the file, right? So my file and if I give the file name .txt, then this will be helping in creating and opening a file. Okay, so that is the first thing. So once you create a file, open a file, write a file, or read a file, you need to do one thing, that is closing of the file. So why you need to close the file is you have to avoid the unnecessary memory usage in the program. So if you close the file, that unnecessary memory usage will be avoided, and hence you should close the file. So opening the file. So once you open the file, if you want to write into a file, writing into a file is quite simple, wherein you just type the required elements to your file. So I want something like A and we give it A. Okay. So next, if you want to read the file, then you are supposed to use my read file and give the file name which you want to read. So this will open up the file. And finally, if you want to close the file, my file. So this is how you access the files. Okay. So these are the, I can say, the simple topics with few examples which we covered until today. And I hope this has helped you. And if you have any doubts, feel free to ask me. And I have shared a couple of documents with your mom. Have them for your access so that you can understand things. If you have any doubts, you can ask. So if you know these stuffs, it is quite, when you go to Java also, the data types. So when you basically have hold in C and C++, what happens is, see, I told you in the beginning, like your Java or your Python are the extended version of your C and C++. And trust me, if you have a good logic in your C and C++, you can crack any language what you have. You'll be having no difficulty writing Java. You'll be having no difficulty writing Python. So we always, while programmers, we being the programmers, we always keep C and C++ as the base language, wherein we try to be 100% perfect in, which is not possible, obviously 100%, but we always try to have good logic and good hold over C and C++. Why? Because is once you know C and C++, other languages will be like cakewalk for you. You need not to really worry about this. And the only thing you need to worry about in other languages would be the syntax. So Java, it will be having a different syntax. But Python, it will be having a different syntax. But the base for everything will be a C and C++. To be frank, this would be quite a, what can I say, advanced version to tell you. So in Python, basically I work on Python and this also. So when we work in Python, Python is just the creamy layer, what I could say. That is the surface of the water which is present is Python. And below Python, in the compiler or whatever the programming happens in the compiler, everything happens in C and C++. The whole Python is built on C and C++. And you can imagine how powerful C and C++ are. So if you have a good hold on C and C++, you can crack any languages very easily. So do study, and if you have any doubts, you can get back to me. Your mom is having my number. You can contact me also. And that's it, I guess.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, mom?
Hello. Hello, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. We just got the session, and even they're not having any doubts. You can share my number if they want, and if in case they have any doubt, they can contact me.
Okay, okay, ma'am. Thank you, thank you. I think
Yes.
students, you don't have any doubts, right?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll share ma'am number. If you are having any doubts regarding this, you can just contact ma'am. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Ma'am, thank you for the all these sessions. It was very information and you took most of the patience to explain every concept. So from students on behalf and for the faculty of ISC, so I thank you so much. And we want you to have one more session regarding another subjects. So I will request you to provide
Yes,
those
ma'am.
sessions
Surely.
in future, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
It
Thank
was
you.
wonderful having an interaction with you and as well as the students.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.